Hi everyone, Frank Spencer here, and I wanted to come to you with another short video in our Meditations in Transformations series. As you can see, we are exiting spooky season. It's the beginning of November. Many might argue that we're not exiting spooky season completely, especially here in the United States, because we're only days away now from Election Day in the United States. So spooky season remains. But nonetheless, this is the perfect time for me to bring another Meditations and Transformations video to you. Transformations, of course, being the natural order of all living things. And the reason it's the perfect time is because we're just about to launch, we're about 1 month away from launching our Holoptic Foresight Dynamics community of practice known as the Dragonfly Journey. And the kickoff webinar will be free. It's 90 minutes on December 10th at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Don't worry. I'm going to put all of the details in the comment below, including how to register. And these Meditations and Transformations videos in the series will be a part of that year-long community of practice, the Dragonfly Journey, that we will kick off on December 10th. That webinar, 90 minutes long, is free. Again, all of the details will be down below in the comments and how to register as well. It's exciting. That community of practice is going to be a year long. Of course, we already do the transformations retreats, and we write articles on Holoptic Foresight Dynamics, the philosophy of foresight that really focuses on the cooperative evolutionary perception, our cooperative evolutionary trait of perceiving emerging novelty that then fosters the co-creation of transformational realities. There's a lot to break down there. It might sound like just a fancy definition, but we're going to spend that entire year breaking that down piece by piece and diving in deep with not just us talking, but with the community. It's a community of practice. It's going to be beautiful. There's going to be a lot that you'll be able to access, but these videos will be a part of that too. And so this video, I wanted to focus on just briefly the idea of relational emergence. I think I've spoken about this briefly in another video, but let me focus on it a little bit tonight because the philosopher Jean Gebser spoke about this in talking about different eras of consciousness development, but from Gebser's view, they were integrated eras, unlike Spengler or Toynbee and other civilizational theorists, really thinking that civilization rises and falls, or that there's just eras and they're not connected. Gebser was a little bit more, I guess, optimistic. Maybe that's not the right word. In believing that there was an integrative effect across these different eras. That's oversimplifying, of course, Gebser's work, but he did sort of coin this phrase, relational emergence. And the reason that's so powerful to the Meditations and Transformations, of course, transformations being the natural order of all living things, is because it's in relationship, not just between people, but relationship between people and people, people in the cosmos, people in the planet, planet and all living things, the cosmos and the planet, the cosmos and the cosmos. You get the idea. All one big dragonfly's eye. The Ommatidia, or as a friend of mine said this week, what is the plural of Ommatidia? Maybe Ommatidiae? I don't know. Is that all of those parts come together to construct an ongoing emerging, not a stagnant, but an ongoing emerging living entity known as the whole. And that whole of all of life itself, coined by Robert Rosen in his book, Life Itself, then speaks back to the parts who retain their diversity, because without their diversity, there cannot be a many-eyed whole. The many parts must retain their diversity for the whole to be constantly emerging. And then that whole speaks back to the parts in saying to those parts, this is what I need to be whole and for you to be a living part of the whole. So it's a back and forth giving relationship. So holoptic does not mean just an goal of the whole, but it's an ongoing circle of the whole speaking back to the parts speaking to the whole, et cetera, and that is life itself. So relational emergence is very powerful in this idea of the dragonfly's eye and holoptic foresight dynamics. Foresight because once that many-eyed whole is constructed in its ongoing emergent state, it is a cooperative evolutionary trait that it is then able to perceive what wants to emerge instead of looking at futures thinking or foresight as if it's objects that are emerging at us in time. And I'm glad I said that word time, because time and space themselves are a non-transformative and non-generative way to approach futures thinking. What do I mean by that? Well, we're going to get back to this term relational emergence in just a moment, but let me start here. Because when we view something as a linear spectrum of time, here I am in the present, and I'm using foresight and futures thinking to look 1, 3, 5, 10, 50, 100, 1,000 years into the future. It doesn't matter what that time span is, I'm still traveling on this linear dimension of time. It's I know time is a broad concept, and many different cultures view time very differently. And there would be some who might be watching me today saying that this is not how culture X even views time. It views it more as a circle, and I completely understand that. But in a data-driven sort of colonial perspective, which dominates our thinking, we see time on that straight line. And so it's something that actually shrinks our view of the future and is non-generative and non-transformative. It's more mechanical and linear. And space and place is the same thing. Obviously, we inhabit space and place now, but again, when we're using it in futures thinking, we're often thinking about that space and that time and that place that will be inhabited at a later date. And so it's very important for us to understand that the dragonfly as a metaphor, and I think it's deeper than just a metaphor, it's actually a way of seeing reality. It's a metaphor. Allows us to understand that the many parts of the dragonfly's eye, the holoptic eye, comes together to make a whole, that the parts are in relation to one another. And their relationship to one another causes a holoptic emergence to take place that is generative, transformative, because it's not time and space bound, but rather it transcends time and space through experience. The dragonfly's holoptic eye experiences what wants to emerge instead of waiting in time or waiting in space, and even saying that based on that time and space measurement or metric, then we then make decisions based on planning about what we would do in the present. That sounds good, and that's like future readiness and future empowerment, but it's not really future's consciousness. And when we work back from consciousness to empowerment to readiness, it's much different than working forward from readiness to experience to consciousness. This is incremental, this is transitional and transformative. And one is non-generative and non-transformative because it's incremental, it's data-laden, it's linear, and it's mechanistic. And the other is generative and transformative because it views time and space from a transcendent place of experience or relational emergence. That the space between the parts causes the emergence of something unique and novel and transformative to take place. It is actually the parts coming together to make the whole, that the whole itself is an emergent property. Because it is the relationship between the two, the space between, that causes a birth of something unique, a novel, unique concept or idea. Cooperative evolutionary trait of perceiving emerging novelty. So sometimes when people hear this definition of HFD, of holoptic foresight dynamics, they misunderstand the word novelty. This is something we'll break down during our entire year. We'll have plenty of time to talk about this during the entire year of our community of practice. And we'll hear from many people and what they think about novelty and what can we glean from novelty. And so novelty in this case doesn't mean that, it's a fad. It means that it is unique, that it is not something that we've seen before, that it is transformative, that it is generative, that it is of a higher order purpose, that it is beyond just thinking, but is feeling, sensing, and intuiting. And that is what novelty here is. Life is novel, and life is novel, and therefore is transformative. Those relational spaces and connections create the emergence of the whole. Gebser's relational emergence is so important to the many-eyed whole, the parts of the eye that see up, down, sideways, backwards, forwards, all at the same time. There is so much wrapped up in this, but I want you to remember once again, this is how we transcend time and space in our futures thinking to rather experience the future. It's not just about getting knowledge about how the future might turn out and then acting on or planning on that knowledge. That's different. That is quantitative, and that's metric driven, and that's technic. Rather, it is an unique, novel, emerging experience that takes place inside all of us cooperatively, connectively, collectively, and collaboratively. It's just going to be beautiful for us to have an entire year in the community practice, the Dragonfly journey, holistic foresight dynamics that can, when we have this philosophy, impact our practice and our actions and our outcomes in a very different way. Not just alter them, but fundamentally change them. And I look forward to you joining us. I'll see you on the next Meditations and Transformations.